Marhaba, and welcome to the Matrix Green Pill, where real people connect.
Hello and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I'm Hilmarie Hutchison, and today I have a really interesting guest on the show, Kevin Brent. Kevin has a background in pharmaceutical sales, marketing, strategy, consulting, value-based management, medical communications, and e-business. He holds an MBA and he has built 3 businesses as well as his own eco-friendly home. Wow, what an interesting background. Kevin, welcome and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much indeed for having me on, Hilmarie. Great to meet you.
Before we begin, could you please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
I set up and I run a business called BizSmart, and we're all about trying to help to create more scale-ups, essentially, to help business owners to scale up their businesses. And as you sort of hinted in the introduction, I've got quite a varied background in terms of the things that I've done. And started off with electronic engineering and then joining the Air Force, Royal Air Force as a pilot way back, and then switched paths more into a business course then really after that.
Wow, so I even missed that out, a pilot as well, on top of everything else. My goodness. How did your background take you to BizSmart?
That's really interesting in that started off with a typical sort of corporate career after the RAF. Then I joined a couple of agencies, and within that, I got the chance to set up a business within an existing business. And I think it was that probably really gave me the taste for entrepreneurship. That was a fantastic time. And following that, then I started setting up my own businesses.
Tell us a little bit more about BizSmart. Unpack it for us. What does it do? What do you do? Let's hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, so one of the things that really struck me, so having set up a couple of businesses, you start to realize that it's not quite as easy as you think. We have these wonderful ideas about, I'm going to set up this fantastic business. I'm going to have the life of Riley. I'm going to, all these wonderful things. And you realize that it's not quite that simple. So I started to get really interested into what made businesses work, some work, and what made some not work. Look into that, explore some of the reasons why. For example, typically across the world, only about 4% of businesses scale beyond 4 employees and less than 1% beyond 50. And it was those numbers that suddenly made me think, because starting off in a corporate background, you just naturally think, well, all businesses must be quite big. I'm working for a huge business, so surely other businesses must be big. And you suddenly realize that actually that's not the case. And why is that? And that's what really my curiosity was sparked, I think, with that. And then I set about exploring the reasons and thinking about how we could help business owners that wanted to scale think about how they could do that.
You didn't always have this entrepreneurial spirit, or was that just something always inside you that you explored?
I think entrepreneurship, there's a mindset, isn't there? An entrepreneurial mindset doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be an entrepreneur in the strictest sense of the word and set up a business. But having an entrepreneurial mindset, I think, is key. And I think I've always had that. Whenever I've been doing anything, I've been looking at it thinking, maybe there's a better way to do this. Perhaps at heart, I'm inherently a little bit lazy and think, well, hang on, this is taking a lot of time to do that. There must be a better way. So I think I've always had that. I think my eyes were opened to the idea of different ways of making money, probably when I was back at university on the Air Squadron. I distinctly remember studying really hard, doing electronic engineering, looking like going on a professional career, and then meeting somebody that basically was a property developer, making money from that way by simply pretty much having some money to invest and then handing over the keys to a property to some people that were going actually the contractors to do the work and managing that side of things, and starting to think, okay, actually, maybe there's not just one path to life and to business. Maybe there are different routes, and that started me think about different things that I wanted to do.
And then you said, in your experience and having worked with different businesses, you realized that it's not that easy to be an entrepreneur. It's not that easy to start up a business. What are some of the biggest challenges that people come up against that maybe results in failure or maybe makes it more difficult to be a success?
Yes, we did quite a lot of research actually so we look at what we call the scale-up journey. And I think that's one of the things is people understanding that there's a series of stepping stones to building a business. It's not actually just about straight line growth. And you've got to think about what does the business look like at that next stage that I want to get to. The challenges do vary as we go up the stepping stones, up the scale-up journey. Increasingly, they become around people. If we're literally starting from scratch and we're setting up a business on our own, that first challenge is how do we get from a point where I'm doing all the work in this business to being able to take on people to do some of the work for us. And if we can't make that transition, if we can't get the business model right at that stage that enables us to start to step back a little bit, have other people doing some of the delivery, then we're never going to be able to scale the business. So thinking right at the beginning as to how that's going to happen and what is it that's going to be different about the way that I'm going to run this business and the positioning that we're going to have that makes us different from everybody else that is out there. And I think that's one of the key challenges when we start up.
Okay, so how do you solve for that in the beginning? Do you outsource then at that stage, or do you get a bigger team to grow at that stage?
I'd love to say, right, this is the one simple thing that everybody needs to do, and they'll all suddenly have this magic success. And we know there's no such, but there's no silver bullet, no magic bullet or magic wand that will do that. There's a set of things we need to think about, but one of those very early on is absolutely have you come across the Jim Collins hedgehog idea? So what is our hedgehog? Because if we can't be really clear about that, then we're not going to have anything that's going to differentiate us. And for those people that maybe haven't come across the idea of the hedgehog, it's about focus. And Jim Collins tells this lovely story about, the hedgehog has evolved over the years to do one thing really, really well when the fox comes along. It curls up into a ball, sticks its spines out. Eventually the fox will go away and then off towards the hedgehog. It doesn't think one day, I'll do something different. Maybe I'll see if I can outrun the fox around the back of the shed or something like that. So the thing is, how do we get to that focus? How do we get our hedgehog for a business?
So to be really clear on your why.
Really clear on your why. Thank you. Yeah, that's essentially it. So what are we passionate about? What are we really, really good at that differentiates us from other people? And what's going to make us the money? So we get those three things together, then we're likely to have our hedgehog and we'll have our why nicely sorted.
So with BizSmart, what is it that you do to help businesses scale or to figure out what it is that they need to do next? How do you help businesses?
We tend to work primarily in small peer groups. So we will match up like-minded and good, credible business owners together and take them on that journey together in peer groups. We call them smart boards. People will be familiar with the concept of mastermind type groups. So there's a lot of that at the heart of what we do. We overlay on top of that some structure around the scale-up journey. So we're introducing things people need to be thinking about, but not all at once. We're doing it kind of on a monthly basis, bringing those things in, enabling people to bring their challenges that they're facing at that time to each of the groups and work with peers to do it. Because we know that you can't teach business like you teach a course. You can do it, but you're going to take a small amount away. We know we're going to have all of these challenges as we go. So providing a forum to do that with the overall structure is the way to do it. And we've kind of adopted, as an old African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Sounds like you're familiar with it. So we've adopted that about going far together, and we go on that journey together and we support each other as we go.
By pulling together a group of like-minded types of individuals, you are able to draw on each other's experience. So where one might not have the knowledge or the skills, another one can help them along the way. So this is not one-on-one coaching or mentoring. This is really more group coaching.
The majority of what we do is based around those groups. We'll do a little bit of one-to-one where that's needed. Maybe some specialist support is required, but it's exactly what you've just said, which is about harnessing the power of other people's experiences where people maybe have got things right and can say, yep, that's what we do. But equally, sometimes when they've made mistakes and they can say, don't do this. And if we've got people in the groups from different sectors and different stages of that scale-up journey, then somebody that maybe is trying to get from having 3 to 5 employees up to maybe 10 to 12 that next stage, or 10 to 12 up to 20, 25, maybe there's somebody on the board that's already experienced that and can talk through the specific challenges. Because at the end of the day, whatever sector we're in, there are common challenges that face all businesses as we're trying to grow, trying to scale.
Talking about scaling, so how have you scaled your business? How many countries or in which areas can people join the groups? Are they all face-to-face, or do you have online groups, or how does that work?
Actually, the majority of our business is online. People can engage with us. We have our own podcast, which is Scale Up Radio, so people can engage with us through that. There's a book as well called The Entrepreneurial Scale Up System, which is available. But our programs are online. So we have something called the Scale Up Club, and people are welcome to join that wherever they are. And that's a very easy way to start to experience the kind of things that we do.
How big are your groups generally, these your Scale Up Club groups?
The smart boards, we keep them small. They are tight groups and we work very confidentially with each other. So they are only 5 or 6 people within each group. And when we run Scale Up Club, we'll have many more people than that will come to the session, but then we split into smaller groups of around about 5 or 6 people, because that's a really nice size of group to work with, where you've got enough experience to get some real collaboration going, but equally you haven't got so many people that you either don't get a turn to raise your challenge, or equally that people are quiet. You've got a nice mix there, and it's not so large that communication gets a little bit of a challenge. Similar actually to building a business with our teams, and some of those scale up pillars stepping stones that I was mentioning earlier on are based around people and people sizes, because we work best in teams of certain sizes. So we take 3 to 5, that's a nice little number, a great team, that if we lose one person, maybe the business doesn't collapse, but equally with the communication's not that difficult. And those stepping stones then are built up on layers of units of numbers of people in that kind of size.
That makes absolute sense. I've seen that also in our business. When it's a small group, everyone tends to contribute and to talk. Whereas the minute you go past sort of 10, 12, it's very hard to get everyone's voice in there, because there are those that are naturally quieter and then those who are naturally sort of more willing to step up and speak up. So do you have like a representative from your team in every small group, or do you sort of create the groups and let them go at it alone?
So when we're running the smart boards, which is our premium service, then that's one of our core advisors or one of our franchisees that is running those groups, chairing, facilitating those groups. Within Scale Up Club, we have a wider network of our trusted, we call them select members, and we give them the opportunity to facilitate those groups. So there's always somebody that's familiar with how to facilitate the groups. We don't just let the groups go off and do their own thing. So they're managed. But primarily the role of that facilitator in Scale Up Club is to ensure that everybody does get their turn in the spotlight. They get their challenge raised. Everybody's got the opportunity to put forward their opinion, ask questions, and that overall it's kept to time. It's not the role so much of that chair to provide the advice, because it's coming from the group and it's teasing that out, which is the real art.
Right. And this is not the first time I've heard of this kind of group. There's others, competitors certainly in the market that's doing this as well. What do you say sets you apart, or what sets BizSmart apart from its competitors?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. It's that delivery combined with the focus on scaling up and the scale up journey and the understanding of that. And I think that's what separates us apart. So you've got the combination, if you like, of here's some structure and some things you need to think about on an ongoing basis, combined with, well, what plate am I about to drop right now? It's, it stopped spinning. What's that one? And how can I get some help from other people quickly to get that plate spinning again? So it's combining that longer term thinking and how we need to build the business for it to be scalable and ultimately valuable, because we want to build a valuable business, combined with that ongoing support from real business people. I've done a theoretical MBA, I've done an MBA, I've had a corporate background, and I've been in consulting. And all of those things are great. You get a kind of theoretical view of things. But when you're on the coalface and you're building your own small business, most of those things don't resonate very well. And you've got to combine, you've got to have a little bit of that, because you've got to have some forward vision and some thinking about how you need to build this business. But you've got to be able to deal with the day-to-day. And it's that practical mix that is really important. So everything we do has to make an impact. That's one of our golden rules. So if we suggest a particular tool or framework or approach to something, then we're doing it from the point of view, we know that this will make an impact and will work in the world of the owner-manager business, not just in the world of the big corporates.
For the benefit of our listeners who are thinking of starting their own business, they've got the entrepreneurial spirit and they've seen a gap in the market. They've figured out their why. Do you have any other tips that you would share with somebody starting out new?
You just be focused. We've got to have our why, but then you've got to be really, really focused. And you've got to be kind of ruthless about sticking to that focus. And that's one of the mistakes that we see quite a lot. And it's difficult, to be fair, it's really difficult when we start a business, because we don't quite know whether what we're going to do, if we haven't done it before, or especially if we're plowing a new path, we don't really know how it's going to be accepted. So we've got to be flexible enough to move, but at the same time, we've got to avoid being distracted by too many bright, shiny objects. One of the typical mistakes that people make is they start a business because they're good at it. So they typically get a few clients on board, and the clients go, "Oh, great, Kevin, you're brilliant at doing that. Could you do this for me me as well. And of course, we're tempted to say yes, because it's money on the table and, we're bound to that. And sometimes that might be the right thing to do. Actually, before too long, we find then that we're being pulled in all sorts of different directions. And instead of doing one thing brilliantly well, we're now doing lots of things mediocrely well. And then if you try and scale a business that's mediocre, you're probably not going to be able to do it.
Excellent. I think that's very wise advice. We've had exactly the same thing in our business as well, where we are very good at what we do. And then people say, but yeah, I want everything under one roof. So I want you to do this and this and this and this and look after the whole thing. And we simply say, sorry, we know what we're good at and we stick to that. And I think that is very valuable advice. Now let's change our focus a little bit. We've spoken about the business and about what BizSmart can do. We mentioned in the bio that you've built an eco-friendly home. What exactly does that mean? Let's talk about that for a bit.
First of all, yes, I built it myself, not just managed it, but actually physically manhandled and brought in people where particular skills were required and maybe certificates were required, but did a lot of the basic grunt work myself. But the eco-friendly bit, I wanted to build a home that was future-proof from that side of things. So it's very well insulated for a start. So everything, triple glazing, but also through the walls, very, very well insulated. We also generate our own electricity. So photovoltaic cells right from the beginning were built into it. Ground source heating. So we take heat from the ground and very efficiently, therefore, to warm the house. And we harvest all of our own rainwater, and we also have a heat recovery system. It's a very eco-friendly house, almost completely, not exactly self-sustainable, but pretty eco-friendly.
And can I ask why? What was your driver for wanting to build your house in this way?
First of all, I wanted to build something that would be a lasting legacy, if you like. And it's the same with building the business. That's what I'm looking to do. But building the house, I want to build something that I was proud of. So that's one thing. But also, I'm not an eco-warrior as such. I'm not that way minded. But I did want to make sure that what I did was sustainable, was making as minimal impact as possible on increasing the problem that we've got. If you're starting from scratch, then why not build these things in as well? They'll save you money in the long run as well if you do it right. It's a bit harder if you've got an existing house and then you're trying to add all these things in. But if you start from scratch, why would you not make it as eco-friendly as possible?
Well, thank you very much. Time has gone so fast. I can't believe we've gone through our time already. So I want to say thank you very much for sharing your insights on BizSmart and what it can do for businesses, and also your story about touching on your home. Now we've come to the segment of our show where I'll ask you a couple of rapid fire questions, our version of a game show. Are you ready?
I am.
What is one piece of advice you wish you had received when you first started out?
Remember the rule of three. Everything takes 3 times as long as you think it's going to do, costs 3 times as much, and you'll earn a third of what you thought you would.
I love that. Very good. What is one thing you remind yourself of in difficult times?
Why I'm doing it. That's, again, come back to your why. If you know what your why is, that's the important thing. And we've seen that with a lot of businesses over the pandemic. Those that have got a strong sense of purpose and identity with the business and why they're doing something, much more likely to get through.
Do you have a hobby?
I do. I enjoy a bit of motorsport. I have a racing license and I race a little Mazda MX-5 around some of the club circuits in the UK.
Oh, excellent. Very nice. And what is one thing you do every day, no matter how busy you are?
One thing I try and do every day is to do something each day that moves the business forward. Not just keeping the plate spinning, but at least one thing that is developing the business and moving it forward. That's what I try and do. So I try and identify that every day, and I try and look to say, have I done that today that's taken me forwards rather than just keeping me where I am?
So even if it's a big thing, to just chip away one small part of that big.
Exactly that, yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, that was a game show, so you did well. Thank you for playing along. Now, before we wrap up, we'd like to do our green pill moment. So could you share an inspiring or life-changing experience that you have gone through? Your green pill moment?
I think I've got a couple. One is more business related and one's more to do with sort of motorsport and life, I suppose. But the business related one was when I set up that first business when I was part of another business. And that was the first time really that I'd taken something with a small team of people, just the 5 of us, and we created something really, really special. And it was that what I think really brought it home to me. We were all absolutely clear on what we were trying to do, why we were trying to do it. And we had our own roles within that, and that worked really well. That was that side of it. From the motorsport point of view, I had a major accident going back about 2014. And I think at that point, it was, I'm either going to stop and quit, or I'm going to do this properly now. That just made me think, right, you know what? Let's get serious about this, do it properly, but always remembering, because it was one of those moments where everything was going too well or so well. And you think, oh, I've got all this sorted. And then something comes up and bites you in the behind. So that's another lesson for me, is always, if things are looking like they're going too well, just watch out for what's coming up behind you.
Very good. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for having been here today and sharing your knowledge with us. It's been excellent. I've really enjoyed our chat, and I'm so sure our audience is going to enjoy this as well. Before we say goodbye, could you please tell our listeners where they can find and follow you?
The simplest thing, you can look up Scale Up Radio. That's great. Or the name of the company is BizSmart, BizSmart. If you just go to the website, bizsmart.co.uk, then you can find all about us. Or you can find the book, The Entrepreneurial Scale Up System. Just simply search that on any of the online retailers that you like.
So how often do you put out a podcast? Is that weekly or?
Every week. And we're looking for, if you can indulge me, if that's all right, we love to have stories, real life stories of business owners and their successes. So people would like to nominate themselves or a guest, then that would be great too.
Super. We'll leave that in, and it's an opportunity for somebody to reach out to you. Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again so much for being here, Kevin. It's been excellent. I wish you, BizSmart, all the very best, and for sure we'll be following your journey as well.
Thank you, Hilmarie. Love what you're doing, and thank you very much for having me on as a guest.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.